Today we're talking about renewables, specifically solar energy. It comes from the sky, but it's not exactly rain. It's something else entirely.
Yeah, he goes on like this. You know what a Nimrod second thought is. There'll be a lot of skipping.
And until recently, it used to be expensive.
And you know the drill. AI to remove the music too.
For a long time, reducing the cost of renewables has been one of the main goals of the sustainability movement. And sure enough, here's the price of solar energy over the last 50 years.
Yeah, way not to give us any useful data, because the real data don't support him. Consider all of the costs involved, including the cost of production, amortized over the life of the unit, expressed in cents per kilowatt hour. That's known as the levelized cost of electricity, or LCOE. And there's a lot involved. Availability of fuel, construction, maintenance, demand, regulatory costs, and profits. When you look at it that way, the LCOE of renewables ends up being something like 11 cents per kilowatt hour, 3 times the cost of coal at 3 cents per kilowatt hour. And the main reason why is that solar panels only last 10 to 15 years, and that's not a long time to amortize costs. Nuclear comes out at about half the price of renewables, around 5 cents per kilowatt hour, because despite much greater construction and regulatory costs, the length of a nuclear reactor license is 40 years, longer than even natural gas plants at 25 years. And keep in mind, with nuclear, that's not the life of the plant, but the life of the license. Licenses can be renewed for another 20 years, and often are. And at that point, you've paid off all your initial costs. There are still additional costs and inspections and upgrades involved in getting the extension, and those need to be amortized over those 20 years, but it's nothing anywhere near like the cost of a new reactor. And they can't and have been renewed for another 20 years on top of that, for a total of 80 years. There are about 20 nuclear plants in the US that have license extensions to 80 years. And theoretically, there can be another extension up to a century, although so far no nuclear reactor has been around long enough to try it. The best solar panels will last 20 years, but most will last 10 to 15. Wind turbines do good to last 10. They just can't compete on that basis.
In the face of this lack of investment, governments had to step in. Through a combination of continuous improvements in the technology's efficiency, subsidies/market interventions by governments.
In other words, government had to bail them out. They're cheaper mostly due to subsidies, money taken from taxpayers. They're not cheaper, just paid for differently.
Notably in Germany.
Yeah, we've covered Germany's incredible failure several times. They went renewable and shut down their nuclear fleet. As a result, their cost of electricity has gone way up, especially in winter, and so has their carbon output. The German experiment in renewables has been a massive failure.
And a massive production effort in China generating economies of scale.
China is also one of the world's largest producers of nuclear power. That's what's bringing down the price for them.
Government stepped in to stimulate investment, and now thanks to that work, solar is insanely cheap.
No, it isn't. The Department of Energy's goal for solar is to get its LCOE down to 5 cents per kilowatt hour by 2030. That would make it as cheap as nuclear. But it's not there yet, and it's not clear it'll be able to make it either.
And if you took an Econ 101 class, you know that cheap means good.
No Econ 101 class will tell you that. But we've already seen you have the economic acumen of a Marxist roundworm.
Energy is energy, so the theory is that the less expensive one should attract more demand.
Well, not if it isn't reliable, and renewables just aren't. They can't do load following where output is increased or decreased based on demand. If it's a cloudy day and demand for electricity goes up, you can't make the clouds part and the sun come out.
That's what's in the eye-opening chapter of every econ book you'll read in college.
You've never read an econ book in your life. In every video, you just spew economic drivel that's so easy to debunk it's pathetic.
And as far as climate change goes, that sounds like the problem should solve itself. So long as people do what people do and just follow the bargain, the cheaper and coincidentally more sustainable energy should take over.
Then why do they need so much help from government? And why is nuclear such a big threat to you?
Now that renewables are so cheap, it really feels like we're good to go.
I really wonder what it's like to live in the world his brain is in, because it's not the one the rest of us live in. He spends the next several minutes trying to blame the fossil fuel companies, so we'll skip the conspiracy garbage. His main point is the government bailed out the oil companies, and that makes it not a fair comparison. But renewables have been in a constant state of bailout. There's the subsidies, there's the tax incentives, and even the big scandals. Remember Solyndra? On top of that, the only reason solar is getting cheaper is because of capitalism. Tesla is doing far more to make solar affordable than any government.
To understand our predicament with transitioning from fossil fuels to renewables, we can look at how we transitioned power sources during the Industrial Revolution. Back then, we went from water power to steam power, meaning we started using fossil fuel combustion to power stuff.
Yeah, and they managed to do it without any subsidies or bailouts. Imagine that.
Except that water was cheaper. Unlike coal, water takes very little human labor to extract energy from. And given that it could produce as much power as steam, that waterfalls were abundant, and that it was cheaper, if we are to trust liberal economists, history should be that steam, and therefore fossil fuels, would only have limited applications in things like transportation. But overall, water should have dominated industrial production.
You see what I mean about his knowledge of economics? How are you going to do hydropower in a car or a train? You have to generate it where the water is. Where you have a waterfall, or where you can build a dam, or where you can use the tides, or wherever. Like all socialists, Second Thought just hasn't grasped the idea of utility, even though that's the entire basis of all modern economics. To give you an idea, later on in the video, he says that moving the power source to where people live is exploitation. I kid you not. Also, like all socialists, he refuses to accept that value is subjective. His little criteria he's putting on why water should be oh so perfect compared to coal is not going to be the criteria that everyone else uses. But like all authoritarians, he thinks that his subjective opinion is the one true objective fact. And then he projects that onto economics, which says exactly the opposite of what he claims. Just listen to what this moron goes on to say.
That's because the thing that differentiated steam and water was that steam was better for exploiting humans.
See? Not that it's easier to transport, not because you get a better energy density, not because the generators can be moved wherever you want and even be mobile while generating power like on a train. No. Everything in his pathetic little Marxist brain is about exploitation. And for that reason, we can skip the next several minutes because it's all based on that pathetic myth.
The reason I took that massive detour is not only that it reiterates this video's main point, which is that under capitalism, profit matters, not price.
See? He had to do all of that to support his main point, which means his main point is bogus.
But it's actually also giving us a bit of insight into what's happening with renewables right now. In this video, you've heard me say over and over again that renewables aren't profitable, and that's not exactly true.
No, it's not true. There is a profitability to renewables in certain scenarios. In sunny areas, rooftop solar is quite profitable to residents. Wind turbines might make sense in windy areas where other environmental concerns aren't at play. But even in a best-case scenario, they cannot be used to provide a reliable baseline load. Certainly not at a low price. You'd have to use something like expensive and inefficient battery technology to catch the energy at peak loads to use at times when demand outstrips generation. Coal, oil, and natural gas have been so successful because that isn't an issue with them. They can be ramped up or taken down in an instant, and they can provide a reliable base load. If you want to replace fossil fuels with a non-carbon emitting alternative, the only way you're going to get one with a reliable baseload is with nuclear. There just is no other option at this point. On top of that, renewables have their place, at least in certain areas, but you wouldn't want to rely on them.
Basically, the strategy of creating a competitive capitalist market that countries like Germany undertook worked too well, to the point that the margins don't justify the investment anymore.
In what way is Germany a capitalist market? If it were capitalist, they never would have shut down the nuclear plants.
Capitalism always requires monopoly and strategic inefficiency to extract profit, to the detriment of the rest of us.
You see what I mean about Marxism coloring his perception of reality? Capitalism rejects monopolies and promotes competition. Once again, after decades of requesting it, no one has been able to tell me a single monopoly that didn't have government backing. And no, Standard Oil was never a monopoly, so shut up! And that's without getting into inherent contradictions in Marxism, which is this idea of extracting profits combined with their falling rate of profit theory.
Competition is often the enemy.
Competition is what you have to deal with in a capitalist market. But how many power companies operate in capitalism? Does your local power company have competition, or is it granted monopoly power by the government? I think you know the answer already. We've even seen cases in states like Arizona where rooftop solar companies were taken out of business by the state because they competed with the local power companies. In fact, rooftop solar should be a good way for consumers to take back some of their power, especially in states with full net metering. But it won't actually be the case until solar can achieve that without subsidies. But hear it from his own mouth.
If democratic bodies could enforce environmental stewardship norms...
See? He needs his beloved state to enforce it in the name of protecting the environment. That's how you know he's been doing nothing but shoveling crap for 17 minutes. I'll just let his conclusion give you a taste of the crap I've been skipping.
But so long as moving in this direction requires us to find profit in the process, it will continue to come with massive drawbacks. It will place the burden of remaining within our planetary boundaries on the most exploited people in the world, and will not come soon enough to save us all, only the most fortunate. That is unacceptable. There is no capitalist path to climate justice.
See? I sat through this drivel so you didn't have to. Hope you appreciate it. So thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.